Good evening, YouTube. I am conducting a second video on, this one's going to be solely based on uh, what it was like for me to be in a marriage um, that entailed domestic violence slash abuse. What I'll be discussing is the subtopics of domestic violence, which entails emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, and financial abuse. Um, I was with my ex-husband, total like 2 years and 8 months, and the domestic violence started shortly after we got married. Um, it was probably about 2 months after we got married, legally married. And I just wanted to like take this opportunity to go in depth with what I dealt with, the things I tried to do to diffuse the situation, and how I ultimately decided to leave and depart from the marriage for my own emotional, mental health, emotional, mental, and physical health. That's what I wanted to say. Um, the the emotional verbal abuse kind of goes hand in hand because it has to do with a lot of bullying, putting down your partner, putting down their self-esteem, not making them feel good about themselves, no support, just constant like emotional and verbal beating. Like name calling, that's one. Name calling is huge. Um, Bullying your spouse. When they ask you for help or for support of any kind, they won't be there for you. Physical abuse. Physical abuse is a lot worse. Obviously it's touching, putting your hands on your partner. And I dealt with that. And this is pretty much my only opportunity to put my story out there and talk about what I went through, because for the longest time I was embarrassed and like wasn't sure if I should really do this, because I ultimately don't want to bash my ex, but I want to put my story out there that women and men that are going through this, what I want them to know is that you're not alone. Like, there are men and women out there that are still going through abuse or domestic violence, whether it's a man or a woman. It doesn't really matter if it's one sex, it's both sexes. So, you could be in a relationship with a woman, she could be abusing you. Whether it's verbal, emotional, physical abuse, it doesn't matter, or financial, it doesn't matter. And so I went through all those different phases of abuse. More so financial, verbal, and emotional abuse. I mean, the physical abuse was still there, but it was more like it was the emotional, verbal, and financial abuse was more significant, I guess I should say. I mean, there's no excuse for either or. I just wanted to say that, that's what I went through more so than the physical abuse. And the physical abuse, what I mean by that is like pushing, putting, your hands on your spouse and like intimidating them and threatening them, um, charging, like when you guys are in a fight, whether it's an argument, like yelling and screaming at them and cursing at them, and then going after your spouse or your significant other, whether you're married or not, going after them and charging at them when they're telling you, leave me alone. I need my space, leave me alone. Because the more you go after your partner, the more it escalates and it gets worse and worse. And when your partner's telling you, you need to leave me alone, like, and you see your partner crying, you need to leave them alone. And what I went through was unacceptable. Like whenever we would argue, even if it was over like the stupidest things, he didn't know how to productively have a healthy argument or a healthy disagreement. And all he knew was yelling and hitting and putting his arms, his hands on me, and again, the emotional and the verbal abuse, like, you're nothing, you're a piece of what. I really don't want to use curse words in here, just because I'm trying to keep it a clean version of what really goes on in a domestic violence relationship, which is really, it's really, really bad, and it's scary, because if you look on YouTube and you look up like domestic violence relationships or whatever, there have been people that have actually died, like their spouses have killed them. That's how bad and how toxic it is to be in a relationship when you're with a partner that carries those traits. And I also think it could be, number one, culturally, or number two, that's just how they are. Like, that's just their um whether it's their profession. Like, for example, he's a cop. So I'm not going to use as an excuse, quote unquote excuse, but it could have been, his dad was like that, or his mom was like that, and it just kind of carried on generation by generation. Or he just flat out just had anger management issues, really, really bad anger management issues. And sorry, kind of getting off topic. I'm trying to keep it consistent, because I wrote a list of things I really wanted to share with you guys. But so, okay, so the emotional abuse is straightforward. So when your spouse or significant other um is like beating you down, like, you're not good enough, or you never do anything right, or you're a piece of what, um or constantly cursing at you, like, oh, you effing b, or you're or using really, really derogatory words like the C word. And I think we all know what the C word is. I'm not going to say it, but I'm sure you guys are pretty smart to figure out what the C word is. Okay. I'm not going to say it on here. It's not acceptable. But he would use that word, and he would call me that word many, many, many times. When someone is not getting their way and they're extremely manipulative, because he was very, very smart, very good at knowing how to manipulate and tweak things to getting his way, he would be manipulative towards me. And somehow, because I'm a really smart girl and I'm really good at like reading between lines and figuring out whether it's, like, whether something is like real or not. So manipulation is also another trait of bullying, for someone to get what they want. So they will do whatever they will do. I'm trying to figure out how to say this the right way. Your partner will figure out a way to get you to do what they want. And there's like different ways of manipulation. I mean, it's kind of complex. And like I said, the name calling you names like B, or you effing this, or you effing that. Or like one time he told me, like, oh, once I'm done with you, no one's gonna ever want you. You're gonna be all used up, and um, and you're never good enough. You're not anything. So it was like slowly, slowly, like beating me down, slowly, slowly, slowly. And when I first entered the relationship, I had really, really like high self-esteem and confidence. And then slowly he just like worked his way to get me down to where he can control me, control my mind, and so he could get what he wanted all the time. So that's emotional abuse. Um, Verbal abuse is also kind of the same category, like I mentioned, the name calling. You're ugly, or um, I'm just gonna explain like what I went through, because like some people go through different kind of phases of different phases of like emotional and verbal abuse. Like for me, I can only say that I got called a lot of names when I used to date other men in the past that were outside of my culture, like white guys, or Latin guys, or black guys. I mean, he would dwell on my past a lot. And then he would, call me like really derogatory names, like, oh, you're a N lover. I'm not gonna say the word because it's not nice, but he called me the N lover, quote unquote, because I used to date black guys. Yeah, he called me the N lover. And my one of my an ex fiance of mine was Mexican, and he, being that he is very racist and a huge, he exercises bigotry a lot. He called me a flan lover. So you know how like Mexicans like flans, like flan is like a dessert in the Hispanic culture. So he would use certain terms like, "Oh, you're a flan lover." So it's like, and then he would like say, "Oh, whites are the best. We're, like we rule the world and all these other things." And I was just like, "Yeah, yeah, okay, whatever." And when you love, like I'll use me an example. When you love your mate, you make excuses to say, oh, he's just pissed, or oh, he's just having a bad day, or you just make excuses. I mean, there's so many ways to make excuses for your partner to say, oh, you just saying that he's just pissed, or he's in a bad mood, or he had a really bad day at work. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is. You don't do that to your partner. That's very, very toxic, unhealthy, and your relationship will go from like here to like here, like in a heartbeat. I mean, look what happened to me. I was with the guy for like almost 3 years, and that's a very, very young relationship still. It's not an old relationship, like we were supposed to still be in our honeymoon stage. And after we got married, he changed dramatically. Like he went from, like, I don't know, this like perfect guy that I thought I was like my dream guy, the guy, like everything that I ever wanted in a man, to like a freaking monster. And and I was devastated for a long time. I wouldn't say a long time, I would say for a while. I was devastated because I thought I married the man of my dreams. I thought I married, my partner, the guy I was going to build my life with, build an empire with, and da 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 da, but that wasn't the case. Um, and then shortly after, it got worse and worse. He started saying, like, he would go off on me. Like, one minute he was happy, and the next minute he was just like yelling and screaming and like throwing shit. And I was starting to think to myself, okay, is he like maybe bipolar or something? Because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist of any sort, but I was starting to think like, you know, being that I used to work in the pharmacy field as a technician, I dealt with a lot of psych patients, and a lot of them did have bipolar disorder or personality disorder, schizophrenia. So I knew the symptoms of those disorders, and he did carry some of those. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying that he did carry some of those characteristics, and it worried me. And as much as I loved him, I mean, I still care for the guy. Like I was married to him. I married him for all the right reasons, but um it hurt because when it's like something dies in you. Like when you divorce somebody, it's like something died in your heart, and that's one of the most devastating moments of your life, other than your parents dying, or like a sibling dying, or someone close to you dying. Insanely heartbreaking, and it's devastating. And I don't wish this upon on anybody. I don't care whether you are my enemy or not. I would never wish this on anybody, because divorce is, it's heartbreaking. It's not good. And I had my days of crying, and I went through my phases. I went through my phases of like crying every single night. I would cry every single night, and I would just take drives and try and get my mind off of it. But no matter what I did, I kept thinking about him. I kept thinking about, okay, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? So he made me feel like I was at fault for our failed marriage, which technically I wasn't. You know why? Because I worked so hard on my marriage with him. Whether we're, like, well, we were only married for like a year and a half, if you count like the legal part of it. But we were together for like a year and a half before we wed. So it was just one of those things where I tried so hard to make it work, and it's like a puzzle. You know, relationships are kind of like a puzzle. It's teamwork. It takes two people to make a relationship work, and two people have to be able to like work together. Whether you disagree or not doesn't matter. You just have to be able to work together. And it was always his way or the highway, and I was always the one like compromising and sacrificing and you know, going above and beyond for him. Sorry, something's in my eye. Um, and I am a very selfless person, and he kept saying, "Oh, you're selfish. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're that." And he was also very controlling. So he's another trait in a domestic violence relationship you have to look out for: someone who's controlling, someone who's possessive. Let's say, for example, let's say you tell your boyfriend. Let's say, for example, your boyfriend, right? You guys are just dating. You guys are not engaged, not married. You guys are just dating, and excuse me, you tell him, "Hey, babe, I'm gonna be out." You text him like, "I'm gonna be out, um, you know, with my girls. We're gonna be, you know, having a girls' night out." And they ask you, "Well, where are you going?" But like, it's not the way it's not what he says, it's the way he says it. "Where are you going?" Like, let's say he'll call you, blow up your phone. "Where are you going? What are you wearing? Who are you with?" "Oh, I don't like this person." "Okay, well, this is my friend and we've been friends for years." Like, it's, you know, that's really not your business or place to tell me who to hang out with, you know? Like, um, so it kind of like things like that, like possessiveness, controlling, um, very jealous. Like if we were out and about and someone was checking me out, he would make really inappropriate comments. You know, it was just things like that that led up to where we're divorced now, you know? I want to talk about physical abuse. So physical abuse is it's just common sense. It's like what you put your hands on your spouse. You never ever put your hands on your spouse, no matter what. No matter how pissed you are, no matter it doesn't matter. There's no excuse. You never do that. Okay? You walk away from the situation. Walk away until both parties are calm. Okay? And if you're in a relationship if you're in a relationship where someone has anger management issues, that's a huge red flag. Okay? Huge red flag. Um I'll admit I'm Arab. I don't know if it has to do with culture, but I'm Arab. Yeah, I mean, I'm hot-tempered, but I don't have anger management issues. Um, I feel like the older I've gotten, the more I say, okay, you know what? Let's walk away. You know, let's take a break and then come back to it. Maybe like a day, you know, it doesn't matter. I don't know, half an hour, 3 hours. But someone who puts their hands on you it's no. It's a huge no-no. That's unacceptable. Um, so I went through, he would push me. There was one time when we were at Costco and I was asking him questions, like just like regular questions, and he's like, "Don't ask me those questions. Don't ask me questions. None of your business." Okay, that's not nice. He would push me out in public and then deny it. "Oh, I don't recall I did that." "Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. Like I'm making this up. Like this is coming out of my ass, really?" "Okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not psycho. Like I know what happened." Um, uh, if he was in a bad mood, you know, or he was angry for whatever reason, and I would try and talk to him about something, um, he would like raise his voice towards me and then come charging at me. And I'm like, "Well, I need to talk to you. Like you know, I want to talk." And he would just be in this like really bad mood, and he would like start yelling and elevating his voice at me and just call me an F and B, like out of nowhere. I don't know how to explain it. It's just really weird. And then like if I wanted to hug him, like you know when you want to hug or like show affection towards your mate, and I wanted to do that and he didn't like it. And he would be like, "Get away from me." And he would just kind of like push me. There were times when he was drunk because he did drink a lot, and I didn't know that he was a heavy drinker. Okay, like borderline like alcoholic. Um, and when he was having a bad day and he would drink, he would take it out on me. And again, the verbal and emotional abuse and whatever he was frustrated with, he would take it out on me, which was not healthy and not cool. Um, and he would like push me. And one time he threw me into the wall. And there were a couple times where he choked me. I mean, I'm not making this up. Like, this is what I went through, you know? Let's see, the financial abuse. So financial abuse, I can just tell you what I went through because I guess there's like different levels of like financial abuse. But um, at the time I was unemployed. There was a certain duration of time where I was unemployed, and I was only receiving so much money from unemployment, and I needed to still to pay my bills, and I needed to help pay rent. Because we were both going, halves on rent, or he was like it was like 70-30 or whatever with him and I. So um I needed to make my car payment, or else they would have impounded my car, and I couldn't afford the rent. But being that he was making, six-figure income, he was obviously able to afford the rent. And when I when our taxes finally came in, because I did our taxes, being that I'm an accounting major, the money finally came in, and he demanded the money to go into his account. I'm like, okay, well, I just finished working 7 hours to do our taxes, and he wanted it to go into his account. And guess how much I got? Zero. I had to beg him, like, dude, I need to pay my bills. Like, I'm still looking for work. I need to pay my bills. And he's like, no, go get a job, go find a job. And I'm just like, I went from working two jobs plus school, planning a wedding, and then our honeymoon, to getting laid off. It was a lot. And then I was on unemployment. They were only sending me like so much, per month. So my hands were tied. And then the jobs that I was applying for, he didn't want me working those jobs, because one was in East Oakland, or there was one where like the schedule was like 3 p.m. to midnight, and he didn't want me working those hours. And I'm like, well, you know what? It's really not up to you. Like, I have to pay the bills, and I have to work. So it's not a matter of, I can't pick and choose right now. I have to work whatever hours that they give me. And so he was just very controlling about that too. So it's just like, no matter what I did, I couldn't win, you know? Um, and he didn't give me any money. I had to beg him. I'm like, can you please like give me like 600? I need to pay this and this and this. And he literally threw the money at me like I'm some whore, I'm like, here, you fucking bitch. Like, that's the kind of thing I went through with him. And I would constantly cry, and it just it got to the point where I couldn't handle it anymore, you know? I He started to tell me like, oh, you have bipolar disorder, oh, you have personality disorder, oh, you have all these issues, and like, I don't know if I can be married to you anymore. And he started really, really making me believe that I'm the one who had psychological issues. Like, that's how manipulative he was. And um he uh well, I went to see a therapist because I had insurance under him, obviously, because we were married. I had insurance, so I went to go see a therapist, and I went to go see a therapist for like what, 2 months? A consecutive 2 months. I went like every week, like twice a week, to go see a therapist and talk about, my strengths, my weaknesses, and they were like, maybe you suffer from anxiety, you know, but they couldn't really make like a thorough diagnosis, because they just said like, there's really nothing wrong with you. Like, you don't have bipolar disorder, you don't have personality disorder, you don't show any traits of either or. So I don't know what he's talking about. And they were like, well, can you bring him in with you? And I had to keep making excuses, because yes, he did work 6 days a week, and his only day was Sunday, which was his day off. And he would get home like 7:30, because he would commute from the East Bay to, I'm sorry, part of the East Bay to Oakland to work. So he was he was pretty much the one bringing home, he was the breadwinner in the relationship. But still, he had enough sick pay for like freaking 3 years to take a day off to come with me to therapy. So it was things like that that he just didn't want to work on it. Like I kept telling him like you should go seek therapy too, because to see where your weaknesses are in the relationship is it's not just me. It takes two to tango. It's not just one person. And he was just in denial. He's like, no, nothing's wrong with me. I'm perfect. I'm like, honey, you're not perfect. There's no perfect person. I have my flaws. I have my weaknesses and strengths. So do you. I'm like, you're not perfect. And his answer was always like, oh, damn near. No, you're not perfect. And, you know, I mean, look, like, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I never did anything, like, I'm perfect. No, I'm not perfect. I did some things in the relationship that were not nice, but I never exercised like financial or verbal or emotional abuse towards him. In fact, I actually did opposite. I would always tell him how handsome he was, or I would every time I would call him, "Hi, honey," how hope you're having a good day, or I'd text him, "Hi, handsome," and he would always be negative. Like it was always negative, negative, negative. Like no matter what I said, no matter what I did, it was never like a positive answer. So I just came to the conclusion that you know what? He's just not a happy person. I was in denial because I loved him. Like I loved him and I cared for him. I still do, but he's now in my past. So, like I said, I always thought that I was the one I always thought that I'm at fault for what happened when really in reality I'm not. I was actually the one who tried to make it work. He didn't. So I had to make a really, really rough decision, a really hard, really difficult decision, and I had to part ways. And it was only for the best. And now that I look back, I am actually happier without him. I had to follow my head, not my heart. And I know sometimes it's hard to do that, but it's for the best. You always have to think, okay, you have to always put like the pros and cons together. Like, okay, what are his pros? What are his cons? Do the cons outweigh the pros? If the cons outweigh the pros, you have your answer. That means you need to depart from the relationship because it's just not good. Um, but let's see, we got 27 minutes of the video. I pretty much described like the basics of like what I went through. If you have any questions about like domestic violence and whatnot, please feel free to ask me. I'm more than willing to answer you and give you like in detail responses, because domestic violence carries in different ways. There's straight up just physical abuse. There's emotional verbal abuse. There's intimidation, which is bullying. A lot of mates do that to their mates. Like they intimidate and bully their mates. So that's also a big thing too. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. But thank you guys for watching my video. Please subscribe to the link on the bottom. Bye. Have a good night.